Hey guys, it's HoTS here, and I'm back to do another Bronze to Master series, this time for Heart of the Swarm. This time I want to cover all 3 races with a lot of depth. So with that being said, I want to start at a very basic level for these first 4 episodes. They're going to be all about different aspects of the game, like how the mind actually learns StarCraft, choosing a race, the different playstyles, and in this particular episode we're going to be taking a look at things like game settings and, am I the right person for you to follow? Pretty simple and straightforward. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the new group system in StarCraft 2. Now there's 2 groups that are set up specifically for me. One of the main ones is HoTS Training. Now that was set up by somebody else, and the purpose for that is if you want to learn a little bit more about StarCraft 2, you want to meet up with people that kind of follow the same teaching philosophy that I do. Maybe they'll play a few games with you, answer some questions, that kind of stuff. Definitely check that group out. The second group to look for is just called HoTS. The reason I set up that second group is so that I can personally update any kind of news on new videos and stuff like that might be coming out. So definitely check both of those out if you want. If not, let's continue on. Alright, if you're not familiar with this particular series, what I like to do is teach players from the very basics of the game and just making workers and making marines and making zealots and that kind of stuff, all the way up to the more advanced techniques that are involved in the game. The main purpose of my tutorials and the main reason I set them up is I never really found anything out there that would teach a very basic level of the game and kind of build step by step so that you can start doing a lot of the fancy stuff that happens at the big tournaments. When you see the big name players like Flash do some really crazy cool stuff, you want to be able to pull that off. But if mechanically you're not there and you're not mining enough, you don't have enough gas, if you try to do what he's trying to do, it's not going to work out for you. So what I try to do is teach you all the techniques you need to know to be able to implement some of the higher level stuff into your own game. It starts at a very basic mechanical level. You got to learn to make workers, and you got to work your way up, and I'll show you how to do that. If you've never seen my stuff and you're new and you're looking to get into Heart of the Swarm or you're looking to get into StarCraft 2, this is definitely a really good place to start. That being said, for me personally, when I play video games and I want to learn about them, I take it reasonably seriously. One might call it tryharding, and the reason for that is because I like to constantly get better. That's what's fun for me, is just constant improvement and getting better and playing better. That might not be what's fun for you. So if you just want to make a bunch of battle cruisers and go screw around in a 4v4, this might not be the series for you. That being said, if you do follow these videos and you kind of practice them and you learn them, you're going to be making a lot more battle cruisers, and you're going to be crushing a lot more people in those 4v4s. So there's definitely going to be something here for everybody. But again, this is definitely a little bit more leaning towards the heavy learning style, and it is a lot of fun. StarCraft 2, the better you get, the more it opens up. Alright, now we need to take a look at game settings. The reason it's important to look at the game settings is there's a lot of things that are in there that can help you out, things like a building grid or even just graphical settings. So I'm going to run you through the menus and kind of show you maybe how you should set up your game, how I personally prefer it, and just let you know some things that are completely optional. So let's take a look at the options menu. Again, we're just going straight to the options menu. The first thing you're going to notice when it comes to graphics is my texture quality is on ultra and everything else is on low. The reason I like everything on low is because, number one, Blizzard recognizes that a lot of people do this, and the game still looks absolutely fantastic on low settings. Now, there's 2 reasons to do this. The first reason is it makes sure your frame rate is always super high, so even in those big battles you don't have to worry about anything dropping off too much. You're still going to be able to micro and play your game. When you're switching screens really quickly and there's a lot of stuff going on, again, you're never going to really have any problems with your computer slowing you down. It's even more important for people like me that stream and stuff like that too. Now there's a second reason to do it though, and the second reason to do it is because on low settings the game is much cleaner. It's much easier to see what's going on. One of the best examples are death effects. What happens when somebody dies when you have low settings? Their character just essentially disappears in like a small little blood splatter. They're gone, they're off the map. So what happens is if a group of like 20 Marines gets hit by Colossus or something, when you're trying to look for and count out how many Marines you still have left, it's much easier to do on low settings than it is on ultra. On ultra, they're going to look really cool, they're going to die in all sorts of fancy ways, but you're going to have a much more difficult time actually seeing what's going on in a battle. That's the reason you'll see me play on low. That's the reason you'll see a lot of pros play on low. And Personally, I just prefer it. The game, again, the game still looks great. That being said, if you do want to play the game on Ultra, and you got the beast machine that you built to do it, hey man, go for it. Whatever is better for your own enjoyment of the game, that's the reason to do it, right? But for me personally, played through the campaign on Ultra, I saw the eye candy. Now I want to drop it off to low and play the game a little bit more seriously, so to speak anyway. Now the next thing we're going to go into is the gameplay settings. Now what's cool about the gameplay stuff is you can set up pretty much however you want to have the game look. Now, one thing I just noticed in particular for myself is I don't have show alerts on. It's pretty important because you'll get like nuclear launch detected on the left side of your screen. It's not always perfectly accurate, so you want to make sure you're still paying a lot of attention to the minimap, but show alerts will definitely help you out. Next thing is display team color life bar. I hate that setting. I turn it off immediately so I get my green, yellow, and red life bars. Makes my life really, really easy. So it's very, very important. The next one is show game timer. Show game timer is typically off by default, but it's a very important setting. This will let you look if you take serious damage and you're not quite sure, where the game's at in terms of timing and stuff like that. If you look and it's 10 minutes and you have like 30 food because you took a ton of damage, it's gonna help you out with that. I don't like to time builds specifically, but you can get a pretty good idea by judging your food and your upgrades and checking the time on that kind of stuff, how well you're playing. Show game timer is very important. Always show worker status, definitely a must-have. Display build grid. This will help you with your wall-ins. It'll help you have your buildings all set up so you don't have a whole bunch of stuff getting stuck. Definitely turn on your display build grid. Select all larvae, very obvious. Stuff like display experience points, not very important, but I definitely like to have it on. Start a worker rally, it's up to you. I prefer it on. If you have a slower machine, you're definitely going to want that on. The next one is enable enemy unit selection. Now this bad boy is off by default. Extremely important to turn that on so that if you go into a Zerg base, you're going to be able to click on that and find out what he's building. If you don't have display or enemy unit selection on, you're going to have absolutely no idea what your opponent is making when you try to click on stuff, because it won't let you click on it. The only real downside is you can click on your enemy units in battle, but realistically you should only be either boxing and that kind of stuff, not specifically picking out singular units. Now, show unit life bars. This setting by default is usually off. You want to make sure you have that on always so you can tell who's healthy. It'll help you focus fire because it'll show hurt units, that kind of stuff. Very, very important. And then the last thing is under replays, make sure you have save all replays checked. If you don't have that checked, you're going to lose out on a whole bunch of your games, and in a couple months from now you're going to want to go back and look at some of your old replays and see just how bad you were. Again, I like to make sure I turn that on. That's pretty much everything you need out of the game settings. So with that, let's just drop back into the game. Alright, now that we have the background game running again, this is just me playing against a friend for fun. My friend is Platinum level. Obviously I used to be Masters level. It's really important that you don't take too much out of these games, but at the same time it can still be very good practice for both players. On one hand, somebody else is going to get pressured and pushed to the absolute limit when they're the lower league player. The guy who's the higher league player, what that lets you do is just kind of train out a build and push it as hard as you possibly can. You're not going to be very worried about counterattacks, you're not going to be worried about, multi-prong harass and that kind of stuff because your opponent probably won't be able to do it. But what it'll let you do is just clean up your build and make it really, really strong. The only thing you have to be careful of is your friend is not going to expose big holes in your build order. So a good example is if I wanted to kill him with pure battle cruisers or do something goofy and stupid, I probably could do it, but I wouldn't learn anything and I'm not creating anything out of it. When I go to take this build to ladder and see kind of how I'm playing and play against people that are much better, I'm going to be a lot more confident, the build is going to be a lot smoother, and when I play against people that are better, they might expose a huge hole in it, in which case I can go back and fix it, or it might turn out to be extremely good. So sometimes what you can kind of do is play against people that aren't as good as you, to really test the build order and get it executed near perfection. And then when you play against people that are even better than you, all the holes in that build order are going to start getting exposed. So with that in mind, I want to tell you what the next 3 episodes are going to be about, and then we'll drop out for this particular episode of Bronze to Masters. So the next 3 episodes are going to be about the different playstyles that are within the game. I want to take a lot of time to kind of look at it But there's really three main play styles. There's what's called cheese play, there's called standard play, then there's economic cheese. Those are really the three main ways people play. Standard play is usually a mixture of aggression and macro play. Guys like Marine King, while they have some cheese in them, he's a very good standard player. Flash, excellent standard player. When you start talking about economic cheese, that was guys like Gumiho when he went 4 command centers in the GSL off 1 barracks. That's an economic cheese. And then there's the cheese everybody's familiar with. They can get as extreme as 2 gate, or it can be like a 11-11 racks. That can be an 8 Reaper, which you can do now, which is pretty crazy. There's all sorts of different cheeses out there. It's important that you're kind of able to play all three play styles, but the one that's most dominant and generally considered the most accepted is standard. However, we'll get into that when we talk about the different play styles, what they offer to you, and why you should learn all three of them. Alright guys, this wraps up this particular episode of Bronze to Masters. As always, make sure you check out my stream, twitch.tv/filtersc. You got my Twitter, which is @filterstarcraft, and obviously my YouTube page, which is what you're already on. Feel free to throw down your comments below. You can leave questions in the comments. I'm usually pretty good about reading through them and kind of looking for the most popular stuff that keeps getting asked. If you have any burning questions, hit me up on Team Liquid. My name over on Team Liquid is just Filter. And I'll see you guys next time. This is Filter SC, signing out.
Mineral field depleted. Mineral field depleted.